But next we're going to have, what's kind of what we would say as the cousins to the Apache, which is the Dene people. And they're kind of up in the Four Corners area. And we're going to have Yolanda Sosi come on, and she's going to feature what she's wearing and kind of share with you everything about kind of Navajo fashion and culture.
Yat Yolanda Sosi insha Tobahan insha Tsana Jini Bashishchi Ashihi Dashanali Tachitni Dashache. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Yolanda Sosi, and I just introduced myself in my native language, which is Dene, more commonly known as Navajo. And Dene basically translates into the people. And today I'm going to share a little bit of insight into Navajo culture, as well as our regalia and our everyday wears of this style of dress that I'm wearing. And it's a Navajo shirt and skirt outfit that I'm wearing today, along with the turquoise and silver jewelry. This piece right here is known as a squash blossom, and my two bracelets, which each have individual stones set within silver, and my concho belt, and it's on top of a woven sash, and a three-tiered skirt, along with my wrap-up moccasins, which are normally made out of deer skin, and the moccasins are normally made out of cowhide. And a little bit about Navajo culture is we're actually the largest tribe in the United States, and we are located just about 5 hours north of here. And our reservation spans throughout parts of northern Arizona, Utah, and into New Mexico. So we're a pretty big tribe, and there you'll seem to find a lot of Navajos everywhere throughout the U.S. and into Canada, even down to Mexico. And a lot of these, these culturally dresses that we wear now are normally not necessarily labeled as so traditional, because before, the cloth shirt and skirt, we would normally wear hides that would signify our traditional clothes. So, as time progressed and as trade and travel had progressed, a lot of these aesthetics came into our culture, by trade and travel, and a lot of the silversmith work has a lot to do with the arrival of the Spaniards, and they were the first European contact that we had with them. So with their technology of metalsmithing and the silver, we kind of refined that and took it as our own. So they also very, very delicately and refinedly made it into, Navajo jewelry, as you see today is a very, very big market. And, a lot of the Navajo clothing and jewelry was, comprised over many centuries. So, as you'll see later in this presentation, I'll be demonstrating a rug dress that my grandmother wove for me. She also wove this sash belt, and weaving is also a big, big part of our culture as well. Our people are, they have livestock, and that was a lot of the times our livelihood of survival on this reservation that we were placed. And so, different parts of my regalia signify certain things, and it's also a way of life as well. These colors within the sash are all, would normally be hand dyed and hand spun, the wool. So, we're also taking from our livelihood and utilizing all these different tools, as well as living with it and appreciating it as well, because My grandma still to this day still has, a flock of 20 sheep in her herd. And, we use that to even survive off as well. Sometimes having mutton stew and also utilizing it for our clothing, shelter, sometimes as a rug. A nice comfy bed we would use the sheepskin, the wool. And so, a lot of these different items of my clothing are comprised of a lot of different aspects within our culture and our everyday lives. So also here on my shirt, you'll see these nice little silver buttons. I don't know if you guys can see that all the way in the back, but normally a long time ago, they might have been silver dollars. So that will also signify, a sign of wealth and success within your own family. So those were some of those things were very hard to come by. Along with turquoise, turquoise goes back centuries and centuries ago. Even, in this region, it was a very, very high prestige to own turquoise or to wear turquoise. And even before we had the metalsmithing technologies, we also utilized turquoise in our aesthetics. So, a lot of these things might not necessarily mean a certain thing, but we also used it to adorn ourselves for aesthetic reasons. So, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask any. Oh, this is pretty much the same idea as like a concho. This is one of the newer styles of the Navajo jewelry, is the multicolored stones, and they're all different colored and type of stones, all placed within silver, and it's pretty much the same style as the little tiny conchos here on the squash blossom, as well as the bracelet. So you'll even see like the same pattern in the bracelet. So it's just, the medallion is just to hold your collar in place, and it's a nice pin as well. Sure. Right. It's said to have pretty much, it was actually something that we took note from the Pueblos. They actually started cultivating cotton in, I believe it was the 16th century. So very, very ancient. But I believe it was around the 1890s that the Navajo actually really started using that type of weaving and geometric designs to, basically use as a means of trade. And they also became very, very popular. So it was a very, very prestige honor to own a Navajo rug or saddle blanket. You'll find them all the way up into the tribes in Canada, chiefs wearing them, all the way down to the rulers in Mexico and the Mayans and the Aztecs. So it was a very, very prestige honor to own one of those back then. Very, yes. Yes. Sure. Oh, yeah. Yes, there are so many, and like I said, the market is so big right now. But not only that, weaving, when I was a young girl, my grandma used to sit us down at a certain time of the day, once all of our chores were done, and it was almost like school. So along with that, I also learned a lot of different values, that weren't necessarily outright spoken, but, the patience and the very time-consuming efforts that you put into even just one little strand of yarn. We would have to card the wool. We would have to spin the wool. I mean, I've done that all with my grandma, thanks to her, and that's coming from generations of knowledge passed on down. And within that time, you're also, learning a lot about your culture your family, and life lessons. So yeah, it was a very, very nice time, but it was almost very tedious at the time. But looking back now, you cherish those moments and the time spent and the efforts put into every little piece of anything that you make. And in our culture, we're also taught in Navajo culture that even preparing a meal, or down to what you think, the energy that you put into those things, it's also exemplified in the piece, your final product. So we're also taught to have a very good thought in your mind when you're preparing something. Yes. It's done on a loom. Yes, it's also woven, and these fringes hanging down, they would just be roped at the end of the loom and tied off at your desire, however long you would want it. So yes, it's woven on a loom. Yes. The donkeys. I thought you said burros. I'm sorry. The sheep, I believe, came about probably right along the time of European contact. A lot of the different things that we did for a livelihood were kind of stripped when we were relocated, and a major part of that was the long walk. And so once we were placed back on these reservations and basically, assigned a piece of land to live on, we had to make do with what we were given, the resources that we were given. And that's, some of the livestock that the Europeans brought over. So we made the best with what was due. And around that time is when we started having, sheep and livestock in our culture as a way of living and making money, or surviving off of. Yes, in the green shirt. There is no buffalo in the southwestern area. We were pretty much hunter-gatherer people. We looked to a lot of the plants and herbs that were in the region, as well as hunting smaller prey, or some deer, or also something that they still actually eat today. Also might have been like a smaller meal, would be the prairie dogs, which were very, very popular in the southwestern region. So, things, smaller prey such as like rabbits or type of birds, or deer, elk as well. Any more questions?
Thank you. Right here where we're standing is where the Pima or the Atem tribe. This is their territory. There's two tribes right now, and they all lived here because of the river here, Salt River. And as settlers kind of came, they kind of split the tribe in half. To the south, there's Gila River tribe, and then there's Salt River tribe here. They're all from the same families, from the same tribe here. But they also come back and are descendants of kind of ancient tribes. And those ancient tribes in this area were known as the Huhukam. And they built canals here that actually, when the settlers came, they were such a great grid system, and they were built really well that the settlers just kind of filled them up with water when they came here. But those are ancient tribes when they came, when the settlers came, and this is hundreds of years back of them being unused. They were all around the same time of kind of like Chaco Canyon, kind of that culture, the Anasazi culture. And a lot of those tribes, before they worked with the materials that Europeans brought over, they used cotton. And so they developed, certain strands of cotton so that the fibers would be a little bit longer and longer every time they grew them, so they can use them and for different types of material. A long time ago, I know, working in New Mexico with the Pueblo tribes there, the men were actually the weavers. And so the men were the ones who kind of took care of that tradition, and the women who were the ones who kind of took care of the seeds. And so they kind of worked together on developing, that type of textile that is kind of known in this area. Pueblos kind of use really long, fully woven dresses, belts, and they got their kind of ways of learning those different things kind of down south from the different traditional tribes in Mexico, all the way down to the Aztec and those tribes, all those kind of ancient tribes that came here before, and now all the modern day tribes that are here now. Yes? Yes, some tribes, for different types of animals, mean different things. For Apaches and I believe for Navajos and maybe for some other tribes, snakes were actually kind of part of a type of medicine that you kind of don't handle. Something that you have to have a specific knowledge of. And today I think they would kind of generalize it as kind of like bad luck. So a lot of Apaches, they don't actually are allowed to touch snakes or touch other materials such as bears. And so it's not that they're bad, but it's just that the medicine that it holds is something that a normal person in the tribe maybe doesn't know how to handle it right, so it would affect them negatively if they don't do things right. So I'm not sure if other tribes might have used it, but specific to my tribe, as far as I know, they didn't use those types of things. But other tribes, they use they actually ate rattlesnake. They ate other things that other tribes wouldn't. But so it's very specific to the different tribes. We're gonna have my mother come out, Doreen, and she's gonna talk about what she's wearing. There you go, Mom.
As I mentioned earlier, I am originally from North Dakota. I am a Rikra, Hidatsa, and Mandan. And if you look up my tribes, we lived along the Missouri River when Lewis and Clark first came to that area. My family name is Yellowbird. My husband Ken's name is Duncan. There's many different tribes that still have their traditional names, but within the Apache tradition, they were not allowed to keep their traditional names. And so what they did with the Apaches, where my husband is from, is they took a military roster, and they had all the men line up, and they were given names from that military roster. And so that's how the name Duncan came to our family. I'm wearing today is a woman's traditional dress, a dress we would wear at powwows, and this dress is called an elk tooth dress. But the elk teeth that I have are simulated elk teeth. I mean, you would have to. I've seen dresses with elk teeth, but I don't have one. But the elk teeth, the dress that I'm wearing, is made from simulated elk teeth. I am wearing fully beaded leggings. These are, and also the moccasins match. These are typical of what you would see at powwows. And I also have on my back here, I have a beaded knife sheath. Women within the tribe, you are, because you're always constantly working, either cooking or preparing something, a knife is always handy. So that's most women's dresses, you'll have a knife sheath. And also, I think I have it here, just a pouch. And this pouch, would hold whatever items I needed throughout the day. And it's a beaded pouch. I am wearing dentillion, and I believe maybe Violet talked about the dentillion. The dentillion, as Native people are, before beadwork, we had quill work. And so quill work was a forerunner of beadwork. But many times we trade it with different tribes. And from where I'm from, the Northern Plains, we really we favored the Dentilian. And so sometimes our people would travel and we would get the Dentilian from the northwest coast. The hair ties I'm wearing are made from deerskin, and they are painted. And so, but they they look much like the beadwork because the neck piece I'm wearing is beaded. I have a feather I'm wearing, a single feather. Within my tribe, we have to earn the right to wear a feather. A long time ago, only those who went in the military and returned home, they were given the right to wear a feather. Today, you bring honor to your community by doing something significant. I received my feather, or the right to wear an eagle feather, when I returned home from college. So once I received a college degree, all of my sons who participate with us in our Yellowbird dance group have done something significant to receive the right to wear an eagle feather. And many times, a long time ago, you probably are familiar with the feathered head dresses. Those were very significant within our tribe. They meant something. So each one of those feathers were very important to our people. And so, we don't take it lightly. Those are very important. So I have my traditional dress here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Carl, and he'll introduce our next model. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Do you have any questions? Your shawl.
Okay, the shawl I'm carrying, it has horses. One of my sons' Arikara name is Swift Horse Coming, and we get our names at when we receive our right to wear an eagle feather. So I kind of wear this because of his Indian name, which is Swift Horse Coming. Okay. Yes. The Apaches. Yes. Well, I'm telling you, if you do a genealogy, I suppose you can find the original names, but sometimes with native names that were written in the Apache language, and sometimes it's hard to translate or so forth. But I'm telling my husband that he needs to do a genealogy and find the original name of his family. Yes? Well, this is it's called a tea dress. And this is something that, sometimes you have to take care of your children. You got work to do, so it had to be comfortable. Anyone else have any questions? Excuse me? Also, I'm carrying a beaded purse, of course. There are different sizes, and it's something actually I use. It's very functional because it's small enough that it doesn't really get in the way, but also you can carry whatever little items you need with you. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and let Carl introduce our next model.